Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Today's video is all about true scary sleepovers. You remember as a kid when all was well with the world? It was Friday night. You had a best friend over for a sleepover. Lots of junk food, video games till all hours of the night. But what happens when a knock comes at the door? How will you respond? What will you do? Sit back, relax, stay sinful. Story number 1. I was a 90s kid through and through. I was born in 1986 and every Friday night was TGIF, which was the best TV show lineup if you were a 90s kid. I remember countless great times with friends. We would all ride the bus home to a certain friend's house and then snack and watch TV until all hours of the night. Friday night, we would order pizza and veg out until it was time for bed. This occurrence happened on a Friday night, like any other back then. The sleepover was at my house this weekend, and my parents would be out of town for the weekend. This left my older sister, who was 16, in charge of the 4 of us 11-year-old girls. My sister was pretty cool for the most part, and always allowed us to be louder and have more fun than our parents would. The time flew by and it was just before midnight when my 2 cats began to meow and hiss at the back door located in the kitchen area of our home. The back door had a large pane of glass that was covered by a curtain. It blocked out the light, but you could always see an outline of the person's shadow on the other side. Did I mention we had a small cat-type doggy door on the same kitchen door? Our cats are very mild-mannered and never make a fuss, so this was alarming and sent up a red flag immediately. My friends and sister and I slowly crept into the kitchen, tried to stay low to the ground and out of sight as much as possible. A small scratching sound came from the other side of the door. It was a very deliberate and slow scratching sound on the pane of glass. All I kept thinking in that moment was how a thin pane of glass was the only thing standing in the way of our safety and a potential intruder. My sister was a brave one, and she snuck up to the door. 2 seconds later, a gloved hand slammed against the glass and we all screamed. My sister jumped back 3 feet. A voice was now audible, and we could see the shadow of a large man looming in the darkness. He spoke in a slow and deliberate tone and said, "Little girls, open up the door, please. There has been an accident, and I need help. Please, my wife is hurt." He said his car was parked a block away, and we were the only ones with the lights on in the neighborhood. This was his first mistake. In fact, we did not have any lights on inside our house or on the outside. Second, our outdoor lights were not on at that time either. How would the man have known we were all girls unless he'd been watching us throughout the evening? My sister said, "Hello, sir. Sorry about your car, but we can't open the door. If you would like, I can call 911 and have someone send a tow truck." The night grew silent. This strange man did not respond. We were all frightened beyond belief, and no one moved a single muscle. It was like time stood still, and then the man finally turned around and slowly walked down our walkway towards the mailbox and down the 3 steps to the city sidewalk. He took a left turn, and a car with its headlights crept up and picked up the man and then sped off into the night. We all sighed a collective sigh of relief. What was the strange man's intentions for us little girls? Well, I'm glad we never had to find out. A word to the wise: always be aware of your surroundings and take safety precautions by locking your doors and windows. If you have any thoughts on the story, comment below. Story number 2. 1999 was the year of this incident. The whole Y2K buzz was in the air, and people all over the world were losing their minds of the potential collapse of society. I myself was an 8th grader that had just turned 14 years old. Most kids my age had a faint idea of what all the paranoia really meant. My best friend and I were going to have a sleepover at his house the coming Saturday. We've been friends since 1st grade and did virtually everything together. GTA, the original game for PS1, had just been released, and we were all caught up in the hype. Gunner's parents were out of town that weekend, and for some reason they allowed us to stay alone at their house. Their house was located in a very rural area, way past Battleground, Washington. You had to literally drive 3 miles down a dusty dirt and gravel road to reach their private drive. Hopefully this helps set the stage for how removed from people they truly were. Of course, me being a teenager with a small rebellious streak, I made sure that my parents didn't know Gunner's folks would be out of town for the weekend. The time was vastly approaching 7 p.m., and we decided to put our DiGiorno frozen pizzas in the oven for dinner. Now, we were in the early winter season at this point in the year, so it was pitch black outside well before 7. Gunner's house had large bay-style windows in the living room and TV room of his house, which had no blinds above the windows. Shortly after we sat down with a good movie and our pizza, the doorbell rang. Now, being all alone this far out normally means that no one should be out here unless we had a planned visit from friends or family. Gunner's closest neighbor was 2 miles away. Gunner looked at me with pure terror and fear in his eyes. I felt so much fear in that moment I nearly vomited. All fell silent in the house, and I noticed a shadow looming near the blindless bay windows. Whoever this person was, now they were trying to look inside our home. A large man appeared in the window with a black ski mask and a large knife. "Oh my God, Gunner," I whispered. In most scary situations, I freeze when something bad happens. In this moment, my body sprang into action. Gunner's dad had a gun cabinet, and we sprinted down the long, dark hall to grab his shotgun. The long hallway had several large windows as well. Gunner yelled, Sean, there are 3 guys, not just one." Tunnel vision at this point, my hand shaking and breath quickening. My adrenaline raging, I finally unlocked the gun cabinet and grabbed the shells and fumbled to load them into the only thing that would protect us. A loud, intense crash came from down the hall towards the TV room. Gunner said, Hurry, they're in the house, Sean." I pumped the shotgun and yelled, "We're armed." The reaction I got blew my young mind. A low laugh rang through the silent house. I stood up, friend close behind, and rushed the hallway and fired a shot right past one of the intruders. I honestly think in that exchange, these strangers didn't think a young teenage boy would have the balls, let alone the ability to handle this mighty weapon. Things go in slow motion when you're at the mercy of a crisis and a potential life and death situation. Before what was really happening registered with my mind, the men quickly shuffled their way out of Gunner's house and made a break for the woods behind the house. Gunner was on the phone with 911 seconds later, explaining the situation. Police showed up 30 minutes later and did a full sweep of the interior and exterior of the home. What they found was insanely scary. Outside of the large bay windows, barely out of sight, was a large amount of rope, zip ties, a pickaxe, chainsaw, and chloroform. Wow is all I can say. My friend and I spent several years in therapy with post-traumatic stress disorder. Story number 3. I was around 11 or 12 years old and lived with my grandparents. They were out of the state for their anniversary, and I was allowed to have a friend over for the weekend. They trusted me enough to not give me a babysitter or anything either, which was very cool of them. I lived in the mountains, and our closest neighbor was more than a mile away, so I guess they assumed nothing too bad could happen. My friend and I were playing Guitar Hero at about midnight when we heard noises from the kitchen We thought it was just my cats making noise at first, so we moved on and ignored it. A couple minutes go by and it got louder. It sounded like jars clanking and silverware shaking everywhere in the kitchen. We both walked into the hallway and could see that there was someone in the kitchen. A shadow figure of a man stood in front of my fridge. We looked at each other, not sure what to do. To get to the phone, I would have to walk right by him. No way he wouldn't have seen me. My dumbass friend just decided to speak up. "Hey, who are you?" She said it so calmly, which was surprising, considering I was scared out of my mind. The man dropped everything he had in his hands and ran out of the house. We ran to get the phone and called 911. It turns out the man was making a sandwich with stuff in my fridge. I want to know who he was and how he found my house. The cops never figured out who he was. My grandparents came home that night. Story number 4, my friends. When I was 12 years old, my friend Bobby's mother would not let him come over and spend the night. She told him it was all right if I came over to spend the night, though. I was really in the mood for a sleepover, so I went ahead and did it. I woke up feeling thirstier than I could have ever imagined. Getting up, I stumbled out of bed and downstairs, while not turning on any light. When I walked into the kitchen, I turned on the light. Immediately, I saw a man, a huge man at the far window. Actually, he was going through the window. He was half inside and half outside, and he was now staring right at me. I couldn't have waited too long, but it seemed like forever. I was terrified, but before the guy could get all the way through the window, I screamed and ran in the other direction and back upstairs to Bobby's mother's room. I pounded on the door. Bobby had woken up and he came into the hallway before his mom had opened the door. Finally, the door opened. She looked at us and then suddenly passed us. Both Bobby and I turned and noticed a man reaching the top of the stairs. Quickly, she ushered us into the room and locked the door. She called 911 and then grabbed her gun from the closet. She told the guy, who was now rattling the door, that she had a gun and would use it. That didn't deter him until she fired a shot. He ran off into the night. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. Email your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I will leave a link to my email in the description box below as well. I need stories. Please share these stories and the channel on any and all social media networks. Help me build the audience that this channel truly deserves. Till we meet again, stay sinful.